Good evening and welcome. Let's take a look at our top story that we are tracking for you. A sharp surge in unaccompanied minors at the US-Mexico border is posing an unprecedented challenge for the Biden administration. And now, after asking the migrants to not come, US President Joe Biden is set to visit the US-Mexico border to review the situation. Now, the number of migrants seeking refugee status in the US is rising sharply. The 2-month-old Biden administration is scrambling to manage a growing humanitarian and political challenge at the border. The untenable situation has resulted in part from rolling back Donald Trump's immigration curbs. Now remember, the Biden administration had reversed a Trump-era policy of expelling unaccompanied minors apprehended at the border. It has instead allowed them into the United States for processing. Now, to have a first-hand look at the situation, Biden has said that at some point he would go to the US-Mexico border, adding that he is aware of what is going on in the border facilities.
Are you thinking of going to the border?
Say again?
Are you thinking of going to the border?
At some point I will, yes.
Do you want to see firsthand what's going on in those facilities?
I know what's going on in those facilities.
Biden was also asked if more could be done to prevent migrants from reaching the border. Listen into what he said.
A lot more. We're in the process of doing it now, including making sure that we reestablish what existed before, which was they can stay in place and make their case from their home countries.
Biden officials have also said that migrant families will be expelled to Mexico or their home countries under a Trump-era health order known as Title 42. But more than half of the 19,000 family members caught at the border in February were not expelled, with many released into the United States. According to government data, there are more than 5,000 unaccompanied children in crowded border facilities. Now, we are being joined by our correspondent, Susan Tehrani from New York, for more on this. Good evening to you, Susan. Good to have you with us. With former President Trump's known hard stances on migrants and he now taking on Biden, the issue is set to become political. Now, the White House still insists that the overwhelming surge is not a crisis. What are the facts on the ground?
That's one of the issues that the Biden administration will have to deal with in years to come. You know, what's happening in America's southern borders is a national disaster at this point. And former White House official Mark Meadows said that this will be remembered as Joe Biden's Hurricane Katrina disaster, a national disaster that happened during the presidency of George Bush, which was really something that a lot of people say really defined his national legacy and his mishandling of it on the national front. The White House is not acknowledging that this is a crisis, but it is a humanitarian crisis and it is now a security crisis, to the point that there are 14,000 youths in U.S. custody. There has been a 92% increase in minor crossings since the beginning of the year and 188% single individual crossings again since the beginning of the year. Texas governor has just mentioned one instance about the humanitarian catastrophe that's going on there right now, and that is a makeshift camp for minors that holds 400 minors, and they hastily put this together in a place that was a resting spot for oil workers. It wasn't a place to have them housed or anything. It was just a resting stop. 400 minors are being housed there. More than 10% now have COVID. They don't have drinking water because it's on an oil field. The water there is contaminated with arsenic, and that is just one example of the humanitarian crisis that these individuals are facing right now. Another issue that they're dealing with is the security crisis, and we already have 110,000 arrests made, 800 of them being criminal, being deported. You have sex offenders, gang members coming in, and national security guards are not being able to handle this. So the state of Texas has created something on their own without the help of the Biden administration called the Texas Lone Stars, because they need to protect the border, the part of the wall that Joe Biden stopped building through executive order because border security guards are too busy handling the migrant crisis. So these Lone Rangers have to protect the border so these criminals and gang members don't come in. And a lot of members, as you know, are falling through the cracks. They're coming into communities, and it is an absolute catastrophe. And to top it all off, we, the media, are not allowed to go and see what is happening to be able to report to the public. So shrewd in secrecy, no accountability because they're not admitting that it's a crisis. And we have these vulnerable communities who have been told some way or the other that there is hope on this side of the border. And the only people that are thriving right now are these drug cartels and coyotes who are bringing these individuals across the border.
Susan, with all of this going on, President Biden has said that he will be visiting the border at some point. Now, today, he and Vice President Kamala Harris will resume their Help Is Here tour on the relief package. Are their priorities in order?
You know, this is a crisis that the Biden administration was warned about, and it's interesting to see how he's going to be dealing with this issue. You know, during the weekend, his Homeland Security chiefs took the rounds on the media and said and blamed what's happening on the Trump administration and said, quote unquote, we need time to put policies in place. They can only go as far as to blame the previous administration when before it becomes clear that they actually dismantled some policies of the previous administration to be where we are right now. The Help Is Here tour, I think, might kind of backfire at the end of the day, considering the fact that it will be deemed and viewed as being a political tour for the 2022 midterm elections to garner support from communities to vote Democrat, to hang on to the Senate, while real communities in voting, Republican voting communities, notably in the South, will be looking to see how their communities are affected with these border crisis issues. So even if he wants to play politics with this Help Is Here tour that he's taking, along with the First Lady and the Vice President, and going and meeting these community members, if he even looks at it from a political perspective, he's going to have to address the border issue sooner or later, whether it's through a press conference, presumably on Thursday, or whether it's just going down there and addressing it and looking the American people in the eye and saying, you know, I've got this. I am Commander-in-Chief, and I'm going to deal with this as an emergency, as I have with, say, the COVID pandemic.
All right, Susan, thank you for bringing us all those details on that situation. WION, now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.